Hey, welcome to Two Dudes Talk Movies podcast. I'm Luke.
I'm Griffin.
I'm Drew.
I'm Cam.
And yeah, we have continued to go 0 days without changing the background on the podcast.
Yep.
With Cam being virtual, we decided that Zoom was probably the easiest way to get us all here. So, welcome back. We are here for our 100th episode of Two Dudes Talk Movies. It's kind of crazy to think that it's 100 episodes.
Yeah.
But before we even get into what movie we're talking about, I want to check in with you guys, Drew and Cam. Where have you guys been? How have you been? What are you up to?
Cam, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm at home. I have an internship with the Tribune, Chicago Tribune. I've been there since July. Yeah, I've been there since July, just covering whole bunch of random stuff, news, arts and entertainment and stuff. Uh, what else have I been doing? That's pretty much it. Go to work and come home. Going to the movies, I would like to say I am a proud, as of like a month ago, I'm a proud A-lister for AMC.
Oh.
Peak.
Recently, go see 4 movies a week. You monthly fees about the price of 2 movies. So I would highly encourage any of you, if you go to the movies twice a month, it's worth it.
It would be worth it for me if the one in Mattoon was no longer
They just,
Yeah,
I
that one
think
closed.
they just bought that or something. Like it's going to be a movie theater again. So,
Yeah, I've heard that off record, but I don't know.
oh, sorry if this is now on record. I apologize. My inside
Breaking
scoop.
news.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah. So me, I've been over the last year and a half. I've been working as a reporter in the Quad Cities, in the Moline, Davenport area, and so like Cam, it's been a lot of work, a lot of home, and a lot of movies. However, I'm not a member of anything, which is I need to become that because it's a lot more expensive up there to go to the movies. So
Is it
yeah,
really?
because I go to a Cinemark,
That
which
might
is
be it.
like reclining seats and like it's nice, but like I'll stand and watch it if it's half the price. So
Right.
yeah, no, it's been a lot of work and stuff, and obviously you and Cam, Luke, you guys carried on the podcast, and now you and Griffin are. So it's awesome to see you guys kind of carrying on in 100 episodes, 100 of the best episodes that anyone has ever seen or heard. So yeah,
Yes.
Exactly, bro.
100 episodes a peak.
yeah, exactly. Maybe that first one, not really, but never mind.
Well,
Haven't listened to the first episode, so
Yeah,
You're good. You're good.
not missing
I'll
anything.
listen to it.
well, the movie that we're talking about today, we're continuing on with our Halloween, October spooky time month shenanigans. We're talking about Weapons, which came out earlier this year. And Drew, you pitched this movie to Cam and I for what you guys wanted to watch. So, can you talk a little bit about why that's the movie you wanted to watch?
I guess because besides like Long Legs from last summer, and I guess the only other movie that I can think of off the top of my head was Barbarian, which was made by the same director, Zach Kreger. I don't know. I just felt like it's been a while since like a horror movie has been like that, like mainstream and that kind of well known in the pop culture. It was a summer horror movie that I feel like a
Right.
lot of people were talking about. And so I guess personally when I watched it, I just kind of felt like it was kind of a breath of fresh air in terms of like the storytelling and the style, because obviously a lot of horror movies can just have like the same style as everyone else, but this one kind of felt like it had like a really set structure that kind of blended with each other. And I think a lot of people found that refreshing. So I was really curious to see kind of what your guys' opinion of that was, and also kind of how effectively it operated as like a horror slash thriller slash comedy.
Yeah.
Nice smorgasbord of genres there. But
Yeah, seriously.
Cam, we can start with you for some general thoughts here.
It was a really good movie. They kept pitching that Jordan Peele. No, that was for another movie. No, but no, I heard that there was a big bidding war on who was gonna like be the who was gonna produce the movie and who was gonna like distribute it. And I thought it was really interesting because I never heard anything like that, like people bidding for. I didn't even know that was a thing. But I understand or understood after watching it why everyone would want their name attached to it. I think having children be kind of the center of a horror movie is a risk all the time because like kind of I don't say it makes for bad TV or cinema, but like no one wants a baby to get hurt. I remember in one of the I think in one of the Freddy or Michael Myers movies, there was a big thing that he was gonna kill a child, but he just walked by.
Mhm.
I know we were talking about it earlier, but I think having a storyline like that, I forget the name. It starts with an A. They did it in another movie, but I think just having them all
Oh, are
kind
you
of
talking about like anthology? Is that what it is?
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Mm,
Okay, there
okay.
we
yes.
go. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Um, having a storyline like that in a horror movie, I've never seen that before. I've never really seen that anywhere except um there was one of these Tom Holland movies, The Devil All the Time. That was really interesting. But I think having Alex, the main character, come as last and like everyone kind of like waiting to see how how he got involved or what his storyline was really interesting. Julia Gardner, her name Julia Gardner, yeah,
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
a really good job.
She's
Uh,
had quite the year.
she has
Hmm.
been busy.
Yeah.
I love her in Ozark. She does a great job, and that and Ungladys, she's like insane. Whoever
Oh
did her
yeah.
like crappiest, like I don't know, everything about her just is unsettling. Um, but yeah, great movie. I want to ask a question when we're all done. I think we can kind of
Like with general thoughts of the episode.
no, it's a comparison question to another movie, but I think
Oh, okay. I feel
okay,
like I might have the exact same question, but we'll see.
yeah, I
All
think
right.
we all kind of know what the question is. But I'll wait later.
Yeah. Griffin, you want to go into your general thoughts?
Yeah, so my general thoughts, I'd heard about this movie like in theaters, like it was playing in like all the trailers and whatnot. It's kind of hyped up like in the summertime too. I really did want to go see it in theater. I just never got the chance to. But then I finally got to watch it yesterday and I thought it was overall pretty good. I did like the mix of like all the different genres. I was kind of expecting just straight horror, but I kind of got like comedy mixed in there too, which is always kind of a nice break from all the spooky stuff going on in the middle of the movie.
Now, and I have a question. Sorry. Do you, Griffin, think that um, for some people, do you think that like insert of comedy, because obviously the director was like on a sketch show for like years before he directed Barbarian and directed this. Do you think some people might be kind of turned off by that like over comedic part of it?
I definitely think some people could definitely be like, oh, there's too much comedy in this movie or something like that. But like for me, it kind of works because I kind of like comedy and just horror too. So it kind of for me personally, it works out.
Yeah, it's a very out there premise, so I feel like the comedy kind of helps it feel more
It
realistic in a way.
yeah, and it balances it out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, as the guy who's never liked a movie, I will preface by saying the movie is great. Um, but with
But
yeah, uh, no, but I really do like this movie a lot. The cast for sure is insane. Julia Gardner is Justine and Josh Brolin is Archer, the two. I guess everybody's kind of a main character, but they're two of the more prominent ones for me. And their performances are phenomenal. But then in addition to that, you have Amy Madigan as Gladys and Benedict Wong as Marcus and Alden Ehrenreich also in there as some more side and supporting characters that do great work. Especially, yeah, sorry, Cam, spoilers ahead anyway. You should know by now. But anyway, uh, whenever like certain characters kind of get possessed, right? Getting to see them before that possession, but then also after, and how they're able to portray them in two completely different ways is really, really amazing. And is a skill that I think not a lot of actors can perfectly nail down. So I'm glad to see that this cast can hit all of those notes. In terms of cinematography, I think everything is amazing. I have no complaints there. Um, I just have a couple complaints with mostly minor stuff though. So not sure we want to get too depressing just yet, but where do we want to start for more of an in-depth look?
You go.
I mean, I guess I didn't do my like I guess full on general opinions, but I can jump into them real quick if that's okay. I guess the reason again, like, because I talked about earlier about why I picked this was because like I love it when I go into a movie and I'm watching it, and like the like people in the movie theater, like it feels like we're all hanging out watching it. Does that make sense? Because like people were
Yeah.
laughing, and then when like a good example is when Julie Gardner, I believe is her name, Julia or Julie, can't remember her
Julia.
first. Julia Gardner, she's in there and she's at night watching Alex's house, and then the woman comes out of the front door, and then she's asleep, and then she comes up and we don't see her at all, and then all of a sudden we hear the door open. Like the reaction from the audience was like so awesome because we were all like, oh my god, that's crazy. I'm trying to wash my mouth in this but yeah, like stuff like that where I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is different, because most horror movies people just watch and they're like, oh yeah, I expected that. But I mean, we talked about the structure of it, and I feel like kind of a little bit of what Cam was saying. Like, we really don't traditionally see that in horror movies at all. It's kind of more like sometimes it's comedy, sometimes it's mostly drama or like thriller-ish, which I guess this falls into that category. But like in usual horror, it's never really that's the case. And I think that because it's hard, it's a hard way to do it. It's a hard way to make sure it's done right. But I think a prime example, and I guess not to like dive too much into the plot, but like when the druggy guy like breaks into the house,
Mhm.
and of course he breaks into that house, of course, of all houses, and he finds like the soup cans and stuff, the Campbell soup cans. And at first I'm watching and I'm like, okay, that's just such a throwaway detail that I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. And then when you realize later at the end of the movie in Alex's story that like, he was feeding his parents soup cans because they were like in a vegetative state. I just feel like each story really did just kind of like build on each other. And I think like another thing that I found was like the cinematography was great. It wasn't like too much, but a thing that I always like is when like horror movies are set during the daytime, and there's things that they're showing that really like isn't they're not playing any tricks. Like it's just like eerily, the visual is just so eerie. Like them running, like the kids running the way they do
Oh
is
yeah,
is
yeah.
eerie enough. But I think the part that got me is when the Marcus is running towards them at the gas station, and you just see him in the background, like you don't even see his face, he's just in shadow and he's just running towards them. Something about that was just so like unnatural that it like kind of creeped me out, and it was just like, wow, that's really weird. And it's not like they used any cool camera tricks, they just straight up just showed him doing it. And I feel like stuff like that's kind of hard to come by nowadays, so I feel like that kind of set this movie apart, although I do have gripes with the ending. We'll get in that to a second we'll get to that in a second.
There are
But
two dudes that have never liked a movie now. But
did
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. I just there's just stuff with the ending that I'm like, could have been a tad better, but we'll get into that.
yeah. Going off the story structure thing though, I don't know the last time I've seen, if ever, a horror movie in a anthology style structure. So getting to see that was genuinely impressive, and completely unique as well, because it
Yeah.
just doesn't happen often. Um,
Well, doesn't happen well often.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Weapons did it really well, I think.
Mhm.
Cam, I did have a question for you as well, though. I know that previously on the podcast, you're not like a huge fan of child actors, so I'm curious to see like what your take is on the child actors in this film.
I think it wasn't a big deal. I think Alex did a really good job of like, not, I don't know why I said that, because I feel like recently I've been, you know, enjoying wow, let me not.
Don't cancel yourself here.
I think the children actors who I've seen recently have done a great job. Uh, at their, have done a great job. Don't ask me who I've seen recently though. I remember, but Alex, yeah, he did a really good job at like just being nervous. He reminded me of uh, was that The Sixth Sense?
Mhm.
Like the kid that's like I see dead people all the time, whatever movie that is. It
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of that. I don't know, he just wasn't overselling it. He wasn't underdoing it. Like he just came across as this innocent kid who didn't really know. I don't know, you kind of just went with it. He was kind of, he didn't know what his aunt wanted, Yeah, he did fine. The other kids, they weren't really, they just like run after this guy, and like they didn't really have anything else to do. But I think it was kind of like I said, kind of a bold choice to have a kid, take he wasn't the main role, but he was kind of the center as far as these children go and his connection kind of to everybody. Um, so yeah, he did cool.
Yeah. Griffin, what are you thinking?
I think having like the multi perspectives worked really well for this movie because there's a lot of different contexts, like a lot of different characters, and just having those multiple point of views just kind of helps with the narrative overall. Because if we were just focused on what's her name, Justine for the entire movie, then it's just like we wouldn't have gotten like the same context with like James or Paul or like really like anyone else. So I think like just having those different POVs like just worked really well.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's used as a way to like keep the plot going because all the anthology they would end in a way that was kind of like a cliffhanger. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that really caught my attention, and they would cut away right when I was like, oh my god. So it kind of made me go like, oh my, how is this going to play into the next thing? And like, and I was going to ask you guys, like, was there a story that you think could have been written better or could have had more of a significant role to play? Because I have my opinion. I was just wondering if you guys had any stories that you think could have been improved upon.
I think Paul's probably could have had a bit more. I feel like
Is that the drug addict?
no,
No,
that's
that's the
James.
cop. That's the,
Paul's the cop, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
Okay. Yeah,
cop.
I agree. Yes.
I think like with Paul, like he's introduced at the start, like him and I keep want to saying Julia, but that's not her name, Justine. Um, they meet at the bar and like and then they like hook up and then like it just kind of cuts like the next day of Paul at work and then he just kind of then he meets James and or I guess yeah, he meets James and then he just kind of goes in the house and then gets all possessed and that's just kind of the end of his story. There isn't really anything significant with him, I feel.
Yeah, I'll second that. I feel like as I was watching it, right, I was behind the anthology idea, and then we get to Paul, and I felt like his section was just getting him to where he needed to be. There wasn't much depth for it because he comes back up later in the movie towards the end. So I feel like that, and like granted, yes, each anthology section is meant to like set up a character to get it to where it needs to be, but like Paul's was only that I felt like. And so that by that point I was kind of like, okay, I'm not really vibing with this as much. This feels like a little bit of a drag. And then the saving grace is that it changes gears and goes to somebody else in the anthology thing. So then it didn't really bother
Yeah.
me as much.
Yeah, I'll co-sign Griffin and Luke. But also I feel like it could have been more, but it also didn't really call for any of that. Like Luke said, he comes back around at the end, so that kind of adds on to his storyline. But prior to that, it'd be different if that's all we knew of him. His certain section at the beginning, but since he comes back later, it kind of not cancels out, but it makes up for it.
I think that Yeah, I think like you said, Luke, and like I guess all you said that it's like they kept adding like character stuff with him that I kind of didn't really add too much. Like I know he like hooked up with Justine, and then he has a wife at home that is the police chief's daughter, and it just felt like a lot of stuff that I think maybe like in the script or something that would add to more. But I feel like in the edit they just kind of kept cutting it down because it didn't. There's so much going on. Because at the end of the day, I thought about that, and I'm like, oh, what was the point of me? And I thought like because he kept getting stabbed by the drug addict guy with his needles and stuff, which I thought was funny. Also like cringy because I'm like, oh my gosh, but like that didn't amount to anything either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it felt like they realized, oh, this like we have bigger fish to fry with these other stories. Let's just keep cutting down. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of the most like cuttable story to do because it was kind of like you guys said, kind of the least like significant in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was kind of like a lesser of two evils thing at the same time, though, because let's say like the movie does cut his section and then he magically appears at the end with no explanation. I think I would have a problem with that at that point because then it'd be like, oh, well, it happened off screen. So I appreciate that they show it on screen. I just wish it was not as boring and like
Right.
there's actually more weight to
Right.
it.
Well,
But
that's why I was laughing because I was in the theater and I was recognizing that this was kind of like a not as important like plot line, and I just love I thought it was so funny that they decided to do like this big elaborate chase scene like where the camera's like swooping, excuse me, behind the drug addict guys. He's like it just felt like they were like, all right, let's kick it into high gear with the cinematography. We got to make we got to make up for some
right.
stuff here where
Right.
everything else is pretty like not generic obviously, but pretty like simple in its like camera movements, I feel like. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and carrying on a little bit with the not having as much narrative weight to things. I'm surprised the narration in the movie doesn't have much weight behind it. And that was one of the complaints I had. And it's a minor one. It doesn't really drag anything down for me necessarily. It's just that it's never like explained who is speaking. And then that bothers me because I just can't have a sense of why it exists. Like if it was one of the kids like reciting it or something, which maybe is the case, I don't know. But just not having it explained bothers me a little bit. And I don't need like a huge in-depth backstory of like, here's this character from Act One that you kind of forgot but was around for most of everything. It can just be like, hey, person A is speaking, and that would be enough for me.
Okay. Very quickly, like you were saying with the opening thing and the ending voiceover, I honestly don't really understand why it was put in. To me, like I think it'd be a lot more gripping if you opened it with the kids just running out, with the same music that they were using. Yeah, I mean, just open with it. Open with the clock hitting 2:17, and then you see doors opening and them running and everything, and then it cuts to the like parent teacher like school conference where everybody's like yelling about what's going on. Like you said, I don't really know like why. Like I really am interested to see why that was a decision they made because it felt like maybe people like test audiences didn't like the jumping into it. It seemed like they needed to like build it up a bit. But I feel like for the director who made Barbarian, I feel like it was kind of uncharacteristic to put that voiceover in because he seems a little more like atmospheric and building it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess and I no mean to take over. I know I used to be a
No,
host
you're
of
good, bro.
it, but I was just curious if you guys thought like that would have been a better start to the film without the voiceover as well.
I have I kind of have short term, so I kind of forgot that the kid was that there was a narration at the beginning, but I think maybe they thought it would be kind of eerie to have, like Luke said, this unknowing figure, unknowing like person kind of narrating it. But by the time the movie ends, so I mean, if I don't know, that whole like wraparound thing with narration and just anything like that, unless like a big thing in your face, it doesn't really mean anything. Unless it's like one of those movies where it's like they start up and they go, you probably wonder how I got here, and then they kind of wrap.
Yeah.
That's the only
Right.
way.
Yeah. For me, I'll agree with that. I think if they just kind of started it with like out that narration, not much really changes.
Hmm.
But I do also kind of understand the decision of having the narration for that part to like add to the eeriness of everything. But then it doesn't matter in the long run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm kind of in the same boat as all of you. It's just like I don't think it was really largely that necessary. I think I could have just gone like kind of just straight into it without like the narration.
Well, see, I kind of thought the ending would have been so cool, and I don't want to. I mean, can we jump into the ending a little bit, and then we can kind of backtrack because I'm kind of gonna tie into it if that's okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
because like the way I was thinking. Oh, sorry, Cam. What were you saying? Did you have something to say? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I was making a joke. I was making a joke.
Oh, okay. I was thinking because I know the voice, the narration comes back at the end, and it's kind of when the kids are like put out of their spell or whatever, and they say like, oh, like some of them are like they were messed up, and some of them are actually learning to speak. I honestly thought it would have been so cool, and that's kind of one of the problems I have with the ending is that it feels like we're like go go go, or at the beginning we're very like stretched out, we're kind of building this place, and then the climax happens, and like within like 15 seconds of like Aunt Gladys, spoiler, dying, it just feels like the movie just ended. It just feels like we're done,
Mhm.
we're
Yeah.
done. And I think it would have been cool for like that to be okay if the narration was like, hey, like I'm one of the kids who was learning how to speak, and then like it like cuts to a different scene of like the teacher Justine going to like visit this girl, or maybe the girl was talking to Justine about what they happened, or or like a
Yeah,
psychologist or a
something.
reporter, and then like talking about how messed up the situation was, and then having like a moment with this new reporter or whoever character, just to feel like that impact from someone like looking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas my problem feels like the ending just kind of got just cut, just boom, we're done. And I kind of felt a little like, oh my gosh, okay, which is jarring when you see like six kind of stretched out stories all come together and then all of a sudden it's done. So that was among some Aunt Gladys stuff that we can get into in a second. I just wanted to know if you guys thought that like the ending felt very like boom, we're done after the climax hit.
Mhm.
I do,
I don't know if for me it was as much of like a boom, it's over moment, but it definitely feels sudden. And I'll agree with you on like the narration part. Like to me, having the narration be from like a child's voice, it would have been so cool if the ending, like you said, showed an actual child like giving that narration back to somebody else to like wrap everything up and put a nice little neat bow on top of everything. But without it, it just feels sudden. So I'll definitely agree with you on that.
yeah, it does feel very sudden. Kind of like with last week's movie, Society, it just kind of ends with Bill and them escaping. But and then in this week, it's just like it kind of ends with that narration, like, oh, and some of them are learning to talk again, and then just like credits. It's I kind of wish there's a little bit more, but I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't like when I was watching it, I wasn't like it didn't take me out of the movie for how it ended, but considering you have a bunch all like Drew said, all these storylines and then just like that it ends. Looking back, it does kind of feel that way. But I know they're talking about a prequel for or like Aunt Gladys's story, so maybe that voice will
Mm-hmm.
it like have a significance then because the prequel was greenlit pretty quickly after Weapons
Oh
came
yeah.
out. So maybe that'll play a part then, but that's just me speaking. Like I don't know anything. I don't know if,
Mhm.
but a question I kind of had about, it's called Weapons, and we see this one scene, or I remember one scene with I think it's an AK-47 on top of the house.
Yes, I had a note about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I read something that this movie is kind of like I don't know, like a sign for like um school shootings and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
I just wanted your guys' takes on them or takes on that and like what you took. Why do you think it's called Weapons, or what does it hold any significance?
Yeah, with that, because that was actually, I have two deep thoughts, and that was one of them. And based on what we said at the start of the episode, I'm pretty sure you know what the second one is already too. But yeah, I definitely think there's a deeper level of that, but it's not something that's a focus. Because in that dream sequence, right, the rifle shows up there, and then earlier in the film, you get that shot where classroom's empty except for the one kid whose name is escaping me, but he's the guy that kind of shows up and ties everybody together a little bit.
Alex.
Yeah, Alex. And then you get like those shots of the hallways and everything's empty as well. So like I think there's an argument to be made for it, but the movie doesn't like fully dive into that. So I think it's just there for like if you want to read into it enough, you can, but it's not meant like that. I think the title weapons comes more so from Gladys using the kids as like her own personal weapons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the way that, especially through Josh Brolin's character, I feel like that's kind of the like the antithesis of that like title, because I feel like he's playing that part of obviously the grieving father because his son like went missing or whatever. But it kind of, with that AK-47 scene, it kind of gives that vibe like, oh, like this is what I like parents go through when stuff like that happens, like when, because they, like you said, the classroom one day is full, the next day it's empty. It's kind of like a sudden event, the AK-47. And so I think through his character, I feel like that is kind of the case. But like you said, Luke, I feel like that's kind of like a mention. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that before the film, I kind of thought there was going to be more like representation of that idea. And I feel like that wasn't the case, which is not like a bad thing on the movie. I just kind of thought it was going to be more like I don't want to say political, but it's more like subjective to that kind of vibe that they're going for. You know what I mean? But
Like a
I'm not
social commentary almost kind of.
correct, yeah. Which
Mhm.
I'm glad I'm fine with what they did. I just kind of it wasn't what I was expecting because that AK-47 showed up and I was like, oh, here we go, and then that was kind of the end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was definitely like a in your face moment, like jingle, 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 like, hey, read into this if you want, and then moved on.
But in a way, it also like the fact that the kids like are so traumatized after they get like taken control of. I guess you could say that's like PTSD as well. You know, like the parents have to then
Yeah.
kind of reach the kids after this big dramatic event. I guess there's a case to be made about that as well. You know what I mean? About kind of such traumatic stuff happening at such a young age. How can that affect students or kids in general? And but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if they would have switched the whole narrative about the movie to focus on school shootings, then we probably wouldn't have had the movie we have now. There's other movies for that. There's I think it's called Zebra. I don't remember it. It's another movie about school shootings, but it Elephant. That's the name of the movie.
Yeah, Elephant. Yeah.
Yeah. Not saying like it's bad to talk about it, but I feel like the direction we went in or they went in with this movie is fine the way it is. And if you want to take up um pick up on the little tropes or the little signs they have, like Drew said about the trauma and the PTSD, then then it worked if that's what they were going for. But I think it's fine the way it is without exclaiming on what the point is. Like a Jordan Peele movie.
Griffin, do you have anything to add on to that?
I do think like the movie does kind of have like a message with like school shootings of like, the giant gun appearing in the sky, like the empty classroom, the kind of everyone returning to their families at the end there. I do think the movie is kind of like a allegory for that in a way. Um, I think it does it well without being like very prominent. I wouldn't say it's like subtle either, but it still kind of like has that message.
Right. Well, Drew, something that you've been dancing around a little bit is problems with towards the ending there and Gladys related things. You want to get a little bit into that?
Yeah, and I know I mentioned at the beginning of this recording about the movie Long Legs, and that was kind of like the summer horror movie of last year. And something with that movie, I guess with this movie as well, is that like these concepts and these plots and these like storylines that are so kind of like like supernatural or extraordinary, you know what I mean, with its basic plot, but it's like played to be like realistic in the way people are reacting to it. Um, and when it comes to this movie, I don't know. I think that when you kind of see the plot, you're kind of thinking, oh, like it's going to be really hard to get a realistic or get a really like real life explanation and ending for everything. And I don't know. I think when I first watched, I was a little disappointed with the fact that it all boils down to witchcraft just a tiny bit.
Mhm.
And I don't really. I think the reason for that is because of the way it's told, right? You know, I mean, we see Aunt Gladys in like flashbacks, or not flashbacks, but in like visions in each story. Or James sees her in the forest. Josh Brolin's character sees her like in a nightmare, and so does Justine. But I feel like when we get to Alex's story, I just kind of was like, oh man, I really wish the story wasn't the explainer story. I wish this wasn't because if it feels like 20 to 25 minutes go by of just, hey, remember that thing from earlier? Here's how that happened. You remember that? That's what this happened. That's what this happened. And I wasn't too sold on it. I wasn't too sold on the idea that, she just infiltrated this family and is doing these things and stuff because and I was laughing a little bit in the theater, not to talk too much, but when she was like, she's like, I need an item from them. And then she like slowly turned to the kid going, you can grab an item from each student.
Right.
And he just grabs their
Yeah.
name tags. And I was kind of like, I feel like the whole movie's pushing on that reality and pushing that how realistic we can go. And I feel like once they hit that, it just kind of it became kind of just way too out there for me personally. And Long Legs is a similar thing because that deals with like the devil. So I'm very curious to see what you guys think, or if you agree or disagree. I just think it kind of was a teensy bit of a cop out to go with just witchcraft. Oh, it's witchcraft. Makes sense. It's witchcraft.
Yeah, for me, everything you said is like verbatim what I have written down on my notes. Like, I completely agree. We get to this point, right, where everything is so practical, like how we mentioned earlier, whenever Marcus is running, right, like it's just happening. There's nothing like crazy special other than maybe the makeup on his face for like the gore of it, but him running with his arms wide, like that's just a real thing. Anybody could go out and start running like that. So then when we get to this random switch up where it's like, oh hey, here's this like 500-year-old witch or something, I'm out of it at that point, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm not like taken out of the movie, because leading up to that point, I'm rather invested and want to see where it goes.
Mhm.
But knowing the direction it takes, I'm now left wondering what other direction even was there, because I don't know how else you explain any of that. And so, like, I kind of understand why, this mystic witchcraft thing is the route that they had to go for it. It's just not something that appeals to me, because I feel like it takes away from the practical horror that we've been built up to see this entire time so far.
And I mean, I guess for me, especially because it's like one of those things where she just needs life force from them, and I was kind of like, because something I was thinking about after the movie ended, and before I get to that, actually, I feel like what you're saying, how it kind of messes with that. I think it's because of what we talked about like the impact of like school shootings and the impact of how everybody's perceiving it, right?
Mhm.
When we go through Josh Brolin's character being emotional, Justine kind of going through her own thing. We're seeing all these like real life problems and struggles, and then it's boiled down to, like you said, a 500-year-old witch that needs life force from these kids, so she breaks a twig, and it just feels like, oh, we're pushing this boundary. um but yeah, I to be honest with you, I just lost my train of thought on the second thing. But yeah, I agree with you what you said about like it just kind of pushes that boundary way too far, I think.
Yeah. Cam, Griffin, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Honestly, I think they did a good job of tying into how realistic it was. I didn't really see a problem with the reasoning behind it all. Probably because I haven't really seen anything like that. But I also don't know what I would have preferred it been. Uh, I mean, a reason for it, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I feel like um with most horror movies, there's always like some kind of just like not inexplainable, just like bizarre reason. Freddy Krueger, like his whole thing is like that's
Yeah.
killing people. It's just something out of the blue kind of like is the cause for it all. Um, but yeah, I think because everything ties in together so well with like real world stuff and getting name tags and having this kid go interact and keeping them in the basement, uh, kind of didn't really take me out of it, to be honest. Griffin.
I think with me, I don't think it really took me out of it. It's just like um I also saw Long Legs, so I kind of had a little bit of the witchcraft kind of thing, but I wasn't really too surprised to see it in Weapons as well. Um, I think I think it kind of just worked, just like the witchcraft and all that.
I think when I was watching it, something that I was kind of thinking like how, me and Luke are talking about, like it takes you out of it. I think when you're thinking about ways they could have done it differently, and maybe it worked, maybe it wouldn't. Like I was thinking maybe if it was like maybe it's a school counselor or something like that that's like not brainwashing them, but like it's a counselor that each student visits, and like maybe they like are like hypnotizing them or whatever to do this thing, and obviously maybe the goal isn't life force, but maybe it's something more like sinister on like a real world thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I that's kind of where my mind goes to kind of be like, because I think that the reason I say that is because I'm more of like a realistic vibe guy. Like when it comes to movies, like I want to watch a movie and be like, that's realistic, that affects me. Because with like I talked about before, I kind of loses me. But I think that maybe that could have been a good realistic way, and I think it could have made the film darker. But at the same time, you know, at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword because you don't know if that would have like pushed it in a completely different direction. And like we have two people who liked it, two people who don't. I mean, it would have been just completely flipped the other way around. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it could
Yeah.
have worked either
Right.
way.
I
It's
feel like
more of a, oh, what
my
were you
fault.
saying? Sorry.
No, you can go on.
I had I ran out of things to say.
I feel like if it went maybe that route, that would have led more into the school shooter thing. And maybe they could have been like I don't know, I guess kids being introduced to guns and stuff from like movies they saw. I think that kind of
Mhm.
led into it because they say not they say, but sometimes students are the ones that are the reason for the school shooting, so they're kind of picking up on it as they're in school. So maybe throwing that into it would have I don't know if that would have led into that narrative of school shootings, but I feel like that could have went into what Drew was saying of just how more realistic it could have been. Just tying
Yeah.
into something that kids like go through.
Right.
I don't know.
Cam, I know you had a question you wanted to ask all of us as a comparison.
I
I have a
did.
feeling that I know what the question is because I
Yeah.
also have it written down probably, but let's hear it.
When I got down chowing on my box of popcorn after Weapons, I went to the restroom and there was another guy in there. And he asked somebody else that was in there, hey, they were just talking like, man, I don't know, is it better than Sinners? And I was thinking like, yo, we just got out of the movie 2 minutes. Like, there's no
Like,
way.
let it simmer for a minute, man.
They're like these are two really good movies.
And this was in the bathroom, Cam. No, I'm just saying. Like I was like, dude, mind your own business, bro. We're trying. I don't know you.
Yeah, man. I don't know. So it's been a month since I've seen it. I saw Sinners when it came out. So I just wanted your guys' opinion on, is this a maybe not movie, maybe not is it better than Sinners, but is it a movie of the year? Like
Like horror
asking
movie of the year kind of thing.
no, just not even like because they all when Sinners came out, everyone was raving like, yo, this is movie of the year.
Oh,
And they're
yeah.
like, wrong for thinking that because Sinners is a unique movie, really good movie. So I don't know if I want to ask, is this movie of the year or is it better than Sinners? I'm kind of asking the same thing at the same time, but I guess for the sake of conversation, is it better than Sinners?
For me, the question I had written down was which is better, Weapons or Sinners, because whenever I watched it, I was not in a bathroom chumming it up with people asking that question. But I was no, for me, I got on Twitter afterwards, and that's the question that I saw on Twitter getting spread around was, man, Weapons is really, really good, but is it better than Sinners? And for me, I remember on Letterboxd as I wrote it down as a joke, I was like, guys, we don't need to be arguing over this, right? Like we can have two movies that are both great and phenomenal that can coexist, but at the same time, Sinners is better. And I feel like that just stems from I don't have as much of a problem with the vibe switching from like a realistic thing to a more mystical thing. And you can make a counter argument here and be like, well, Sinners has vampires in it. How is that realistic? But then I would remind you that the opening of Sinners dives completely into like the folklore of the vampires. So instead of just having it mystical and being like, oh, hey, it's a vampire, instead you're like, hey, look at this local tale that actually exists and the vampires around that and how they interact with the real world. To me, that's, I think, partially what makes Sinners better. Sinners does a lot of other things that I'm not going to get into, but I wrote a review on that for the Den. So if you want more in-depth thoughts, you can go check that out. But
what a plug! What a
yeah,
plug.
a shout out,
Guys, check out my content.
Yeah.
Drew, Griffin, what do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh man. I think as like you said, Luke, I think like if I was to say which has the better like fully developed story and which one do I think ends in a more like cohesive way, I would say Sinners. Like you mentioned, like it feels like everything kind of what wasn't like the world
Sorry
was
to
set.
interrupt, but I'm looking at Cam right now. Is something going on?
Me too.
What was that?
I'm just like,
What
I
sound?
can't see Cam.
I
Oh,
thought that was the sound.
What?
I heard like back stuff. I
I didn't
Okay.
even hear
just kept
anything.
talking. I was just ignoring it. I was just hoping my audience did.
Okay. Sorry.
But yeah, I think that like as a more cohesive story and like you said, Luke, where it's like, oh, like I watch it and there's never a time where I'm like, oh, that's stretching the boundaries of the movie. I think Sinners has a better like cohesiveness to it. I think that I prefer the vibe and the storytelling aspect of Weapons more. And like as a horror movie that I'm going in and I feel uneasy and creeped out, Weapons I think does better at that. Where I feel like Sinners is more of, telling the story about music and using it's more of an action like thriller, if that makes sense. And I also feel like in Sinners, and I like Sinners, I think that the horror and the vampire aspect comes much later in the film.
Hmm.
It definitely like is a film that's about like the music and the culture with these vampires as it's like kind of like the spice on this story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I feel like Weapons kind of is the opposite, where this plot is the like reason you're going to go see it. You know what I mean? Um, and so I guess to answer the question the most roundabout way I could figure out, I think I prefer Weapons as a film and the story, but I can recognize that Sinners I think has more like I guess it's just I think it's a better executed film within its own world, if that makes sense. But I think that Weapons I preferred like the concept and the way it plays out. Obviously I have a problem with the ending, but I think overall I prefer that one. But not to jump onto the Sinners, like just completely make a new review, but like Michael B. Jordan though. Two Michael B. Jordans though.
Not one, two,
Not one, two.
two. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good way to look at it as well, especially with, the structure of weapons coming into play there. But Griffin, what's your take?
My take is that for me personally, I do think Sinners is the better movie than Weapons. Not that I had a problem with Weapons, obviously, but I just liked how like Sinners it had like the folklore, it had like the music was a huge part of the story too. I thought that was like really, really unique.
Mhm.
I guess with Weapons, aside from like maybe like the multiple POVs, it just felt like a kind of more of a more traditional horror movie than like Sinners was. Um, it's just kind of like the whole vampires versus witchcraft thing, but like with Sinners, it kind of like with Sinners, you had like the vampires as like part of the folklore, and then they like kind of came to life, and then but with like weapons, it's like it's more like grounded with some mystical elements with the witchcraft.
Right.
But out of those two, I would say I probably prefer Sinners more.
Cam, I don't know if you fully answered the question. I know you pitched it, but if you had to choose between the two.
I would go Sinners. Sinners is I feel like Sinners has more character to it. Um,
Mhm.
it's a new idea, blending all of that together and then making it work out the way it did. I think it had better camera work, especially that one take.
Oh my
Um,
God. Yes.
uh, I think they had a. I don't even know if Sinners had a. Well, I don't know if Weapons had a score or soundtrack, but the music was better. In that. Uh, and like Griffin said, Weapons was kind of a more traditional one, even though it's a unique idea, incorporating like having it being led by children in the classroom. Uh, I think I think Sinners had um, I don't know, just all that background, use that folklore and just this battle of humans and vampires. And truth be told, I couldn't tell which Michael B. Jordan was which. Like, I don't know which one's Smack. And
Right.
everyone on Twitter kind of like talking about like Stack did, Stack did that. I'm like, bro, I don't know who's who. I know one's blue and one's red, but
Right.
that's about.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'd have to go Sinners in four.
Yeah.
Sinners and
One final thing I want to add on with me preferring Sinners over is I feel like Sinners got more of a reaction out of me. Over last year, whenever Cam and I were co-hosts, uh, I came to the realization that like if a movie is going to be a 5 out of 5, like I have to have some sort of reaction to it as well, right? Like I can't just be like, okay, you check off box, 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 whatever, and then it's fine. Like I need to feel something while watching it, and I'll never forget that kind of how Drew you felt like during Weapons. I don't know if community is the right word, but like you felt like you were all collectively hanging out, right? I felt that way in Sinners because I'm sitting up at the back of the theater. There's a guy a couple seats over from me, and when the one take happens and that like beat drops and it like fades out for a minute before lowering back down, I'll never forget that he takes his popcorn bucket, puts it on the ground next to him, and then fully leans up like this for the rest of the movie. This guy never leaned back in his seat at all because I kept checking over to see if he would move. He was locked in for the rest of the movie. So
He was inspired.
yeah, and I had goosebumps that entire scene. So definitely for sure, me for Sinners. But
$80 popcorn bucket just not being used at all. That's sad.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
well, with that being said, is there anything else that we want to talk about with Weapons before ratings? Because both my deep thoughts kind of got covered already.
Here, I had one. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think that having Josh Brolin in this movie, I think is pretty telling on like I don't know. I'm not gonna say how special it is, but how like different this movie is because I was talking to you, Luke, about how Josh Brolin really doesn't. He picks his stuff pretty like specifically.
Right.
He's not in like a mass amount of movies because he picks them very sparingly. And I saw an interview where he was like, "Yeah, like my usually don't like doing horror because they all feel the same. They're all kind of blah. But then my children watch Barbarian, and then I watch Barbarian. I thought it was really good." And so he was like, "Okay, there's this script. Let me see like what the directors worked on before." And his kids showed him the Whitest Kids You Know sketch comedy that he like was a creator on and cast member for like 5 years. And in the interview, Josh Brolin was like, I thought I made the biggest mistake of my career because it's the dumbest sketch comedy. But I think that having him in the movie just kind of like not gonna make comparisons because like I feel like they're not. Sorry, Josh, you're on the same like acting level as like Daniel Day-Lewis, but like when Daniel Day-Lewis is in a movie, you're like, oh man, this movie's got to be something because he chose to do it. That's kind of what I feel with this one a little bit because he's in it because he's not an actor you traditionally see in like your run of the mill horror movie. So I thought his performance was really good, and I think that he kind of like gave it that extra oomph to it. And
Mm-hmm.
Justin Long being in the movie was also a fantastic cameo because I love me some Justin Long, even though he dies in like every movie he's in. But I thought having him being there in the most like insignificant role was kind of a nice cherry on top for me personally.
I'd I would just want to speak in general terms that we got a lot of good horror movies this year. And I know we've all well, I don't know if we've all, but Drew Britton, he's like a big horror fan, and he kind of taught me that horror doesn't really get the recognition he thinks it deserves at at the Oscars. And I mean, uh it's true, you know, looking back, a lot of horror movies are being nominated or like awarded anything, but I think it's gonna be hard this year to not recognize horror movies for like anything. They skip over, you know, Weapons, Sinners, him. Not saying these are all good movies, but like you get all that. You get The Strangers, Together,
Sure.
Bring Her Back. You got The Long Walk if you want to consider that horror. You know, you got all these movies, horror based. They're doing really good in the box office and everything. I mean, I know numbers aren't real, like they go for numbers, but just from a fan standpoint, good year for horror.
Well, with that, do we think we're good for some ratings?
I
I
think
think
I think
so.
so.
All right. Cam, let's start with you for ratings.
I would give this Weapons 4.5. I think I gave that on Letterboxd. There's not
Now,
a
if we weren't
lot.
on Zoom, I would be hitting the buttons right now with like the ding and the clapping.
I'm
But the best I can do
I'm
is
right
just
next to
so.
the buttons, but I can't press them.
do the inside talking. Yeah, there's not that much wrong with it. After speaking with you guys, no, you gave me something different to think about. Like all this kind of leads up to witchcraft, which is something I hadn't thought about prior, and that made you feel, or that made the story kind of feel like, But it's I didn't see a lot wrong with it. I think the story was unique. Having these children in school, uh, they have that little nod of like maybe this is something else with the school shooting stuff. Um, but yeah, there's not a lot wrong. Only reason it doesn't get a 5 is one because it didn't make me feel anything, but like Griffin said, I don't know, it didn't make me feel anything like oh my gosh, but also like I don't know if it did. I don't think it's the type of movie that would make me feel anything, but it is a good movie plot wise. So yeah.
Drew, what are your rating?
Are we only going by fives here, or is it like, or can I give like a like a 0.8 or something?
I mean,
It's your rules. Your
you
rules.
can,
Luke.
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
We can do it.
Sorry, I'll stay traditional. I won't overstep. I'll probably give it a. Geez, it's kind of hard for me to give it this since I just kind of like bash the ending. But I mean, I think which has always been the case. But I think on Letterboxd I gave it a 4. Like after I watched it, and I think that I think I give it a 4 because, like you said, Luke, like it got a reaction out of me. I was like, oh darn, the ending. That's because I was so invested in everything that came before it. So I'm not going to discard the hour and 20 minutes that I watched where I was the most invested among other movies this year. But I think that the ending kind of makes it to where it's not a 5 because, like we talked about before. So I think I would give it a 4 just because I was invested and I was intrigued by the plot. And I mean, I went to the movie theater, which like I said, it's expensive to go to the Cinemark. So when I go there and watch a movie, it's something I'm deeply interested in. So yeah, I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Oh. I don't have the buttons. It's hard to do it now. Griffin.
I'm pressing them.
Rating.
I can't get a sound effect out of them. Let's see. Let's see. My rating would be probably 4 out of 5 as well. Thank you, Luke. I mostly thought it was a really good movie. I liked kind of the witchcraft part of it and like the narration style of the different point of views. The only real issues that kind of takes us our way is that uh like Cam said, it didn't really get like a huge like reaction out of me. And then like just kind of like Paul's character too. I kind of wish he was a little bit more built up upon. And but yeah, overall I'd say still solid 4 out of 5. So Luke,
For
what
me,
would you rate it?
as the guy who's never liked a movie, I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5. I do appreciate a lot that this film does, especially with the casting, cinematography, and the anthology structure. But as we've been saying, and Drew's been talking about, I feel like I lose interest a little bit once we get this build up, and it's just it's all for a witch. Then I'm a little out of it because you give me all this good practical stuff beforehand, and then switch up on it, and I don't fully vibe with it. But that's really only the complaint that I have that's warranting any points negated from this for me. I know I mentioned the narration not just being ever explained or anything, but that was more of a minor gripe. I never really would have taken points off for that. But yeah, I think I'll go with 4 out of 5.
So seeing the prequel.
We'll see. We'll see. I love that.
See.
I love me and Luke are probably like, because that's like the one gripe we have with the whole movie.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate for an industry standpoint that we're greenlighting things quicker, but maybe make sure they're worth greenlighting before we greenlight.
I want
Yeah.
a Paul prequel. Give me a Paul and James prequel.
Yeah,
I might not
Yes.
pay to see this. I might not go to the movies to go see it, but I'll catch it on HBO when it comes out 2 weeks later.
right.
That's all.
True. Max,
So-
HBO Max. whatever the heck it's called, by the whatever color it takes.
Yeah.
Back to HBO Max now. But
Yeah.
Yep.
well, with that being said, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to talk with two dudes as the other
Yes.
two dudes who have talked movies. 100th
Great to have you guys
episode.
on.
It's an
Two dudes
incredible
squared.
milestone. I hope that we've been doing it justice in your guys' eyes. Kind of carrying on that legacy
Luke,
that
I
the two
don't
of you
know.
started. But
I don't know, Luke. No.
yeah, as many
for
times as
sure.
I've never liked a movie, it gets questionable, you know. But
No, you guys are doing great.
Kudos to keeping
Thank
it
you.
going.
thank you.
Let's come out.
So, well, with that being said, for Two Dudes Talk Movies and the 100th episode, and here's to another 100, I'm Luke.
I'm Griffin.
I'm Drew.
Cam.
And we will see you next week. Drew and Cam probably won't, but
Yeah.
they're around. They're around.
Yeah.
We'll be
Thank
watching.
you guys again for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, cool. Thanks for having us.
Thank you again. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
See you.
Bye.